Welcome to How to Improve at Zoom and Skype Video Job Interviews. This is a Law Society of Ireland Improve at Interview webinar.
I'm Shane Farrell from Law Society Career Support.
And I'm Keith O'Malley.
And today we're just going to talk you through 8 different matters for job interviews, video job interviews. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover connection, we're going to cover your equipment, you're going to cover the right platform for you, your surroundings, your settings, how you should appear, how you're going to communicate properly, how you're going to prepare, and practice, rehearse, like mock interviews. So just looking at the slide, looking at the image at the bottom of the screen, this ties in with our theme of video production, drama. So to do well at job interviews, you're going to have to do the same as ordinary interviews. But on top of that, you're going to have to manage the additional technological and production matters involved.
Great. So in terms of connection, you need a fast internet connection. We're talking about something certainly over 20 megapixels per second, something ideally around 40 or 50 megapixels, and it needs to be consistent. So there's no point, sometimes it's up at 40 and 50, but other times it's down to 12 or 15. If that's the case, you need to find some other place where you've got a much stronger, good connection. And you test, and there's 2 ways of testing. You can do an internet speed test, but you can also have a number of Zoom meetings. So contact a friend and have a Zoom meeting and make sure that there's no breakdown or that you're not, that the sound isn't going or anything else like that. And on the day, make sure that you've got an uncluttered connection. So if there's other people in the house, make sure that they're not going on to PCs and using their mobile phones while you're doing the interview. What you want is you want that full, as much bandwidth as possible. So keep it uncluttered.
Equipment. Again, following on from Keith's slide there, it's test, test, test. You're going to have to test your computer, test your camera, test your mic, test your headphones. The computer, ideally you're looking for a PC. A PC is going to give you a larger image. And you want a larger image, if at all possible, so you can read the interviewer, read what they're interested in, try and get your silver bullet. Alternatively, if you've bad broadband, a mobile phone is fine, but the image is going to be smaller. Your camera and mic are similar. You may have an older PC. Again, just test them in different rooms. You're going to have different lightings. You're going to have different acoustics. Most importantly, or just as important, headphones. There's nothing worse than having feedback on a job interview. There's nothing worse than having to ask the interviewer to repeat themselves, or vice versa, them having to repeatedly ask you. So try and get your advantage here. Any advantage is a good advantage.
Great. You're going to be on a platform. The 2 most common ones at the moment are Zoom and Skype. And each of them have their own facilities, and you need to be very comfortable with them. So, for example, at interview, you might find that you're asked to share a screen or to multitask, go and get an email that they just sent you or something else like that. And you need to be able to do that and do it well. Make sure your profile is properly filled out. It should have a picture, that kind of stuff. And know the facilities that are available on whatever platform you're using. So, for example, Zoom, you can change the color of your skin tone. You can use the camera to improve the image. Make sure that you know the facilities that are there. You can reduce background noise, all of that kind of stuff, and use them, to full advantage. Another thing that's very important is to check your settings of your mic and, in particular, your mic. Just before the interview starts, because sometimes a computer can divert you onto another mic, and you think you're speaking to, a particular mic, but you're at a much less efficient mic. So make sure that you test your mic just before the interview starts.
So your surroundings. You're going to choose a room that's quiet, that's good lighting, background, and that you're highlighted. Choose a room that is very quiet. You want mobile phones off. You want kids, if there's kids in the house, you want them occupied. If there's dogs with the neighbors, if there's dogs at the back, make sure you're at the front and vice versa. The lighting itself, you're looking for consistency. Brighter, the better. Trying not to get any shadows or anything like that involved. The background, as Keith mentioned about the Zoom backgrounds, stay away from them. Try to get things as plain as possible. That way you ensure that you're highlighted. You want to be the focal point. Just make sure your face is full frame and that you're very easy to see. You want to be the best that you can be on these video interviews, similar to the left-hand side of the image here.
Great. So in terms of appearance, well, the great thing about Zoom and Skype interviews is you don't have to worry too much about dress in terms of the bottom half of you. You know, you can wear a pair of pajamas and slippers if you want. But the top half, make sure you're wearing a nice blouse for ladies, or a nice shirt for men. Try and avoid designs. Videos, small videos that we use on PCs don't do well with things like herringbone designs or pinstripes. So stay with plain colors and as far as possible. Should you stand? Should you sit? Standing is really good. There's not a lot of positive things about standing. Your voice is stronger and richer. It's a more proactive kind of a stance. But if you're talking to people who are sitting, you're probably best to sit as well. You know, that's the best way of building empathy, that they feel that you're communicating the same way that they are. Use your body, and what we're talking about there is your eyes. You know, the difference between a Zoom interview and a telephone interview is the person on the other side can see things like your eyes and like your hands. So use them, and don't overdo your hands, and don't point at people with your hands, but do the Boris Johnson, the open hands are very, very effectively every once in a while. But really importantly, your eyes. And what you're seeking to do, of course, with your eyes is to look at the camera all the time. There's a temptation to look at the screen because that's where the person is. But what you've got to do is look at the camera, because when you look at the camera, the effect that they get is they feel that you're looking at them directly into their eyes.
Communication. So the aim for good communication is to get a good back and forth between yourself and the interviewer. And to do that, you've got to listen. And by listening, it allows you to read the interviewer itself. It allows you to get the feedback. When you're listening, make sure to take your time in returning to them. So avoid interrupting the interviewer, and always be positive. It's very important to be positive. Preferably, I prefer these video job interviews myself, because you can just focus on one person at the same time, particularly if there's a panel or anything like that. So be positive, enjoy the whole thing, and get it back and forth with the interviewer.
It's really important that you're on top of competencies. We've talked about this before in our other webinars, but you need to understand what the employer is looking for, and you need to keep addressing those concerns as you talk. And a great way of doing this is this technique that we've talked about in other webinars. So as you finish answering a question, you say, and I think what I just talked about is important, because I think it's really important in this job that the person is good at communicating in front of groups, or is really good with attention to detail, or whatever it is. So what you're all the time trying to do is steer discussion around to the job and how the job would be done really well, as opposed to lots of stories about what you've done in the past. Silver bullets are really important. Silver bullets are things that are really important to the job seeker, to the decision maker, apologies. So there are things that maybe the decision maker said, well, whatever I get, I want somebody who, is consistent, and who, doesn't make mistakes and, do shoddy work or whatever. If you know that, something like this, you can obviously communicate that you're that kind of person as you progress through the interview. How do you find out about that? Well, talking to people who maybe know him, or know the company, or even know the industry sector beforehand. And also at interview, quite often the decision maker may tell you these things. I am particularly keen that the person has X, Y, and Z, or whatever. Or other times they'll communicate in a less expressed way. You'll see their eyes glint up, and maybe they lean into the camera as a certain subject comes up. And what you do there is you think, ha, that's important to them, you know, I'm going to return to that. So silver bullets are really important. And the last thing is to be succinct. You need to, in as far as possible, telescope what you have to say into as short and as simple messages as possible. Shane.
Rehearsing is very similar to what we've covered before in previous webinars. And that the only difference, mock interviews, the only difference is that we're on a different platform. So if you're going to get an interview request and it's going to be on Zoom, best thing you can do is practice on Zoom. If it's going to be in Skype, practice in Skype, etc. Google's practice on Google. Do this repeatedly. Record yourself, look back on it, find any faults, improve. If it's going to be a panel interview, very easy to send 2-3 friends, whatever the amount's going to be on the panel, 2-3 friends, send that to them, ask them to ask you questions. Make sure there's no surprises on the day. It kind of goes back to the whole testing area. When you're going back over the interviews, when you're looking at the recorded interviews that you've done, try and get sound bites. Try and distill your answers to a third of what they would usually be. And remember, the more that you do, the more rehearsal that you do, the more confident you're going to be, the less nerves you're going to be, you're going to have, and the better performance you're going to have.
Great, thank you, Shane. That's the end of this webinar. I hope that, well, we both hope, I think, Shane, we both hope that you have found it beneficial. It ties in with the other webinars that we've done and others that we're going to work on over the next few weeks and produce. And if there's any particular subject that you want covered, drop us an email or give us a phone call and we'll cover that. Bye.
Bye.